Welcome to another edition of Tech Closeup. I'm Mark Albertson, and like we always say, if you want to get close to technology, well, you don't get much closer than right here in the Silicon Valley. But it's not just the technology that makes this valley tick. It's the people behind innovation who really count. In this month's program, we'll talk to Peter Neumann, a lead scientist at SRI International, about the pros and cons of electronic voting. We'll meet the people at AAE Systems, where the management and employees literally had to reinvent themselves to survive. And Christina King takes us to a low-income housing project in San Jose, where the residents are wired and wireless, thanks to a great community program. One of our goals here at Tech Closeup is to capture stories about the daily lives of people here in the Silicon Valley. It's a place where dreams are made, sometimes where they're broken. Well, here's a story about one company that literally had to pursue a whole new course and come up with a new technology just to survive.
Somewhere in Sunnyvale, new satellite technology spells out the letters AAE. They stand for a small Silicon Valley player with big, high hopes.
I've been involved in this for over 20 years, and I still can't wait to come to work in the morning. I'm here at 5 in the mornings, and it's great. It's fun. It's not work.
What Javed Hussein calls fun sounds more like an impossible Silicon Valley dream. He built a fledgling satellite technology firm without a dime in venture capital. He survived the dot-com bust, and now his AAE Systems is coming back strong.
Starting in 1984, we went through some very hard times, since we had to fund ourselves to go out and provide a $3 million program. That taught us quite a few things about money.
They also learned a few things about satellite communications. AAE just launched Eclipse, a new all-in-one modem that controls video, phone calls, and data all at the same time. It gives private industry a cheaper way to manage links to distant places like oil platforms way out in the ocean or across the Saudi desert.
Each icon represents an actual satellite terminal in Saudi Arabia. Based on the information that they receive, they define where to drill for the oil, when to stop drilling for oil, when to ship what they were able to get. You can do more. You have more possibilities, more functionality, more power with less equipment and using less satellite resources.
A lot less. Remote satellite systems often pack lots of tech. In fact, that's just how AAE got started. With off-the-shelf gadgets, they built custom network systems till big suppliers locked their shelves away.
We're highly dependent on our manufacturers to provide the product, and that was a liability. And we saw that either we had to go into manufacturing our own product, or basically dwindle away and close the corporation.
Well, AAE never closed. Instead, it just eclipsed. Its high-tech Eclipse modem may answer Mother Nature's rage with faster, cheaper ways to link remote disaster sites to the outside world. And about bad weather, which often disrupts those satellite signals to your home TV screens.
Yeah, I saw the commercial.
Weather is no match for Eclipse.
Very important is that the modem can automatically compensate for rain, storms, or snowstorms, so that even in the bad weather you will still have communications.
That's a lot to expect from one little modem. Just ask AAE's chief troubleshooter.
Well, the main goal, of course, is to make the thing work. And you don't realize, you usually plug in a cable, pick up a phone, and it's working. You don't realize how much stuff is really working in there, and that's the amazing part to me.
Now, don't expect Eclipse in the home just yet. AAE only targets businesses, but that's plenty for a small firm with only 25 employees. It's kind of like a little family, but a family that's anxious about success.
We will lose a little bit of the control once we start growing. So our plan is to take one step at a time and see how those things are going to be.
For people who are starting off, if you like what you do and you enjoy it and you believe in it, then no matter how hard it is, you can always work through or work around problems.
It's one winning strategy for a Silicon Valley communications firm with a 3-letter name. But what's in a name?
AAE does not stand for anything.
As Javed Hussein tells it, the letters AA and E sprang from a last-minute whim, but then spring ahead 20 years.
No, now AAE does stands for everyone who's here and what we accomplish and what we do. That is AAE.
Now that we've all put some distance between ourselves and November's election results, we thought it might be timely to talk to an expert about technology that's sweeping the country, electronic voting. So, not long ago, I sat down with Peter Neumann of SRI International and talked to him about the pros and cons of technology in the voting booth.
You've heard a lot about touchscreen voting. Sounds like no-brainer science, right? Most of us use touchscreen ATMs or computer monitors all the time. So after the mess in Florida, why not vote with a computer too? Well, we all know it's not that easy. And nobody knows that more than our guest, Peter Neumann, principal scientist at SRI International in Menlo Park, and also author of this book, Computer-Related Risks. And believe me, this man knows a lot about computers because you've been going back in computers to 1953, right?
Right.
They had computers in 53?
They had very primitive computers in 1953.
It wasn't anything like this.
No.
So programming a computer in 1953 had to be a whole different ball game from what it is now.
Yeah, the first machine had 4 registers and no memory at all, and everything was on the punch cards. You ran a punch card deck through with a data deck at the back, and you got a bunch of cards out. You put them at the back and you ran it through again, and you kept doing this until you got your final answers.
What interests me is that I didn't realize that touchscreen voting machines have been around for, I think you said 15 or 20 years at least?
Yeah, there's some earlier ones in that experimental, but that's about it.
What made them become necessary 15, 20 years ago, before Florida?
Well, we've been using computers in elections for a long time. For example, even the punch card machines originally they used a very simple punch card reader to tabulate the votes, and then people said, well, let's put that into a computer and we can actually do a lot of processing. Instead of having to run it through many different times for each candidate, we can do it all at once, just recording the results and putting them into a computer. So there have been computerized elections for quite a while.
But the concept of the touch screen.
Yeah, the idea of the touch screen, or even a keyboard entry, is one that has been around for a while, but it's one that never has been done properly yet, I would say, from the point of view of security, integrity, reliability, and the lack of audit trails in those systems is very serious in that you can't have any assurance that your vote goes incorrectly.
Here's the part that I don't get. We walk up to an ATM machine, you press the screen, your money comes out, and you get a receipt. Okay?
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
There's no big deal.
Why can't voting be that simple?
Well, ideally, if you think of the ATM, you have, first of all, you have a printed receipt, which you get. So if there's any question, you go to the bank and you say, look, I didn't make this transaction. It wasn't mine. This has somebody else's account number on it. How can you claim that this was my receipt? That would be a silly thing because normally you wouldn't get a receipt for a transaction you didn't make. But suppose you go to the bank and you said, well, I wasn't there at the time. I couldn't have possibly withdrawn that money. And they go back and they say, well, we've got a camera that shows that you were actually there at that time. Now, there's somebody who was actually thrown in jail because the timestamp on the camera was wrong. And he'd been there a few minutes before. And there was a holdup, basically, and they thought that this was the guy who matched the printed record. So even if you have printed records, it doesn't guarantee everything. But In the ATM, I'm wandering here a little bit, but in the ATM you have cameras, you have printed records, you have software that has been very carefully written to assure that you never get money without your account being debited, and the bank never gives out the money. In the other situation, if you get the money, it will have debited. If you don't get the money, it will not have debited. And that was a little bit obscure, but I think the point is that the programming is done very defensively, so that you know exactly that the money was in fact debited to your account, and that it was you who, well, presumably you, in that somebody could have used your card and your PIN.
Why can't voting machines have that same safeguard?
Now, the fundamental problem with the voting machine is that you'd like your vote to be private. You don't want anybody to know how you voted, or you don't want to be able to prove that you voted for a particular candidate, because then you could sell your vote to somebody else. That's not a good thing. And that's a problem with the absentee ballots, actually, where your ballot may not be as private as you'd like it to be. But if you want a private ballot, then you need some sort of anonymity. You need some sort of cryptography or some sort of security mechanism that assures your vote will remain private and yet allows for accountability, recounts, audit trails, and so on. The solution that the vendors have taken in developing the touchscreen machines is that there's no audit trail of the actual votes. That has been approved by the voter. There is an audit trail, but it's printed typically at the end of the election. That's not an audit trail.
I still remember the old voting machines with the little flip keys,
Yeah.
the little toggle switches. What's wrong with having those machines?
Well, first of all, there's nothing basically wrong with the old lever machine. It had some nice properties. If you tried to vote twice for two different candidates in the same election, it wouldn't let you. You had to lift up the lever for the other machine, for the other candidate first before you could put down the second one. So it solved the overvote problem. It still had a few little problems, like you could grind down one of the gears a little bit so that after the first 100 votes, maybe the gear wouldn't engage quite as often as it normally should, namely 100% of the time. And there are the little problems with chewing gum and rubber bands and things like that. But basically, the old lever machines were very reliable. You could test them beforehand. There was a mechanical linkage with the actual lever. And you could go in the back and you could do a bunch of tests, and you could see that the counters were going up. I think the key point here is that there's no system that's completely perfect. The technology is only a piece of the problem. We've had problems with optical scan machines where you connect the bars on the side and you continue the line, or you fill in a circle, and where the machine actually picks up non-votes as votes or fails to pick up legitimate votes. We've had problems with punch card machines, obviously. Punch card machines are subject to all kinds of problems. For example, if one of the CHAD slots is stuffed, you can't get the needle through the card. That happened in '88 in Florida. It happened again in 2000 in Florida. So the bottom line, as far as the technology is concerned, that no technology is perfect. Now, the deeper problem is that it's not just the technology, it's the entire process. You've got to think about the registration process, the voter who shows up with 7 different aliases and votes 7 times, the voter who is not even registered but is voting for somebody else, the voter who's voting for the dead person. I have one friend who used to be in North Carolina years ago. He moved to California. He goes back after many years to North Carolina and goes to the registrar and says, "I want to re-register." And they say, "Oh, you've been registered all the time. In fact, you voted in every election for the past 20 years, even though he was living in California and was voting in California."
You know, it sounds funny, but it's not.
It's not funny at all.
It's not funny at all. Especially at a close election like we had in 2000. But from your perspective, with your experience in computers and your understanding of the limitations of the technology, do computers belong in the voting booth?
They could be useful. Remember, you in the media are desperate to have instant gratification. You want the results before the election is over. And one way of doing that is computers. But one way of assuring that that is the correct result is to have what we're calling a voter-verified audit trail, where the voter actually has a chance to look at something, for example, a piece of paper, that he doesn't walk away with. Maybe it's behind glass, or maybe it's hidden from him in some way physically, but he can still look at it. And the screen says, is this a correct image of what you see on the screen? If it is, you say yes, and then this becomes the vote of record. If no, you say, well, this is wrong. They're not consistent. The first thing the election commissioner should do is disable that machine, because there's something fundamentally wrong with it. There was one experiment in which this was used where the paper was different from what was on the screen. And what the election administrator said is, well, the paper must be wrong, we'll accept what's in the electronics. Even though the voter had said, no, the paper's right and what's on the screen is wrong.
You know, what I have to ask is, if the technology is that questionable, why can't technology be improved so it no longer is questionable? Okay. What's wrong? What's the challenge?
Well, there are 2 points here. One is that at the moment these machines are costing $2,000 or $3,000 a pop, and that seems like overkill when paper ballots are significantly cheaper. The second point is that in the research community, we've been working on very reliable, very secure, high integrity, trustworthy systems for many, many years. I personally have been involved in that for at least 40 of the 50 years I've been in this field. And I would say that in the research community, we would be perfectly happy to build a system that had very high integrity and would satisfy the most stringent requirements. Now, it could still be misused, because you have to think about the insiders in the process, the vendors who, in fact, routinely change the software that has been certified after it's been certified, but before it's used in the election.
Which should we, as voters, be more concerned about? The computer or the hanging Chad?
Well, in answer to that, I would say, let's go back to my notion that the process of voting, from registration to authorization of the particular voter, to casting the ballots, to counting the ballots, to canvassing them, to bringing them together, and then publishing the results, is a weak link process where everything is essentially a weak link. Now, which of those weak links do you try to fix? The answer is you got to fix all of them.
All of them. I was going to say all of them.
Yeah. If there's one weak link and everything else works beautifully, that will be the weak link that will be either accidentally or intentionally corrupted.
And if the election comes down to a difference of 576 votes, all of those links could have been fixed.
So the answer to your question is you can't put your finger on one thing and say that hanging Chad was the problem in 2000, when tens of thousands of voters were disenfranchised incorrectly.
So if we can go back to 1953 for a moment and think about, as a young man, you're starting to program computers in the very early days of computers. Did it ever occur to you back then that computers were not only going to become so pervasive in our lives, but actually could make the difference in an election? Did it ever occur to you back then it could go that far?
Probably not in 53. In 53, it was quite obvious that punch cards could be used in tabulating elections, and that was a reasonable thing to be thinking about, since punch cards were the order of the day in 53. I would say in the 60s, when we started exploring time-sharing systems, it was a natural thing to think about how people could vote remotely, say, and have their votes correctly recorded. So the idea goes way back. Now, the question as to whether it's a good idea or not is one where I would say, in principle, it's a fine idea. In practice, it's a disaster because of the way it's been implemented.
Well, it's a very scary thought, but it's one that will probably drive our imagination and our election process for many years to come. Peter Neumann, SRI International, thank you so much for joining us on Tech Closeup.
Great. It's a great pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In today's tough economy, there's always a danger that the gap between those who can afford technology and those who can't will grow wider. Well, here's Christina King with a story about an ambitious program in San Jose where some strong-willed folks are determined to not let that happen.
Little fingers click the keys as eyes focus intently on the screen. It's Friday after school, and no one wants to do homework.
Right now I'm checking my horoscope because I'm always curious of what my horoscope has to tell me, and which right now I'm looking at is today's horoscope, which is my sign Virgo.
In a bright basement room at San Jose's Plaza Maria Apartments, computers line the walls. It's a free place for students who live in this low-income complex to come and learn.
I use the computer to do projects, homework, and play.
When I'm in school, when they assign me a project or something, I just go on the computer and look up the topic they give me. For example, I just had my recent project was on cancer, so I would look up pictures of cancer.
Like Jacqueline Mendoza, many of the kids who live here don't often know how good they have it. After all, every one of these computers is available 24/7 for free, broadband internet included. Who would have thought they'd owe it all to a nun? She's Sister Patsy Harney, also known as
Cyber Nun, Cyber Sister, proud tech-savvy mama of all things digital and bandwidth.
The nicknames are hard-earned. Sister Patsy has a big job.
We have 53 apartments here in this complex.
She's the Associate Director of Community and Resident Services for Mercy Housing. The Bay Area nonprofit not only gives people with disabilities in several cities an affordable home, it puts opportunity at their fingertips.
Mercy Housing builds housing in low-income communities, and so it was kind of a natural. We have community rooms, we have need for technology, we build communities.
And building communities means more than just windows and walls. Sister Patsy's mission is to build the computer skills of Mercy Housing's tenants so they can lead better lives. The dream became a reality 4 years ago when the U.S. Department of Education granted Mercy Housing and Sister Patsy $500,000 to get residents plugged in.
The first shipment of computers we had here, all of the residents, many of the residents from Plaza Maria came downstairs, and we spent a whole Saturday together refurbishing the computers. And some of the best little technicians were like about 8 or 9 years old.
It's the kids who use the basement computers, but at this apartment complex, it's not the only place you'll find digital access.
There are 53 apartments here at Plaza Maria, and get this, every one of them has a computer, and it's all wireless.
Nelson Providor has lived at Plaza Maria 3 years now. The car mechanic has built his own little side business of setting up and fixing computers for his friends.
And if I need like a drivers or software, I go into the internet and just download it from the internet.
Residents pay $50 for a computer and online service, but wireless internet didn't come as easily at Plaza Maria, the first and only so far of the Mercy housing complexes to go wireless. Installers had to work around the older building using new antennas and receivers instead of the phone lines.
So that way we can do high-speed broadband connection in every apartment here at Plaza Maria.
That kind of work isn't cheap, so a national nonprofit called One Economy, whose mission is to dissolve the digital divide, teamed up with Cisco Systems to foot the bill.
It's very exciting to think that we've accomplished it.
One Economy and Cisco also help pay young students to learn computer skills to pass along to other kids and adults at the apartments.
My job here is to watch over the kids, make sure they're not going into anything bad, and making sure they're quiet. And also like during Thursdays and Mondays, I'm making sure that they're doing their homework from 3 to 4.
Meanwhile, upstairs, residents like Nelson Providor plan for their future. Nelson wants to go back to school and get a tech job that pays well.
Well, it's something that I really like is work on computers. And since they provide me with more computers, Now, and plus the wireless internet, which is faster, then it's just helping a lot.
Cybernon wants a handheld computer.
Sister Patsy keeps dreaming too, knowing that anything is possible with a little cyber savviness and a smile. Christina King for Tech Closeup.
Tech Closeup's goal is to capture the true spirit of the Silicon Valley. But if we're going to capture that spirit, we got to hear from you. Send us your ideas and your story suggestions to our website at www.techcloseup.com. Thanks for joining us again. I'm Mark Levinson. And remember, if you want to stay close to the technology that drives the Silicon Valley, then join us next time for another edition of Tech Closeup.